Okay, today's the day I figured we would shoot a Titan review because I have 3 of them and it's about time I did you guys another product review. Let's jump over to it. I'll take you up to the farm and we'll do the review now. Arguably, this is my son's go-kart, but I kind of use it every day. Now we're good. All right, let's do it. Hey guys, welcome back to another review. Today we are looking at the Titan 6955. Now I've personally purchased 2 of these machines and I also have the 8955 over here. Now this machine is very similar, the only difference being the size of the pump that's really different and the Honda GX engine. We moved to a 200 from a 160, but otherwise that's about it in differences. Anyway, let's dive in. I'll show you what I like and not so much like. Okay, so the things that I really do like about this machine, starting up from the front, is this Honda GX 160 engine. This thing gives us 50 watts of output for our lights and lasers, which is absolutely fantastic. It'll run 1500 PSI, which is what we use at 3300 RPMs, run all day long. In fact, you get about 1.4 liters per hour out of these tanks. So this tank here will run for about 2.5 hours at full throttle before you need to refuel. Now, when you're out lining on a job, typically what we're doing is marking out everything and then putting the lines down as the very last job. So typically we wouldn't even use a full tank when we're out, and we do a couple of hundred parking bays at a time. So first thing I love is that engine that we've got at the front. Followed on, it's also got the electric start that you can see just here, which I think is a really nice addition to add in. You don't often get that with the GX 160s, but you can add it on. You can buy it as a kit that you just add on, but these come already with it built in, which is fantastic. Next thing I love about this is actually where the location of the filters for the hydraulics are, but also getting up to the main pump itself. This thing is phenomenal. It is so silky smooth, and the lines it produces are just incredible. In fact, the next thing I'm going to show you are the lines this thing does, because when it does, it is so good. It is so good. But we'll show you that in just a second. So, love the engine, love the location of the filters, really nice, accessible. This pump, absolutely golden. This thing is bulletproof. It is so good. The next thing I love though is the center of gravity. Let me show you. Now this, arguably it's unloaded at the moment. This is actually a brand new one, fresh out the crate. This one's got the bigger tank on the back, so at the minute we use a 25 kilo pail of paint on that one, but this one you can actually get nearly 2 tins in. So the thing I love is the center of gravity, and what I mean is you can just pop this thing back, swing it around a car park. You know, with all the paint loaded onto this thing, you're pushing 150 kilos easy by the time you've loaded this thing up. If you're adding lights, lasers, paints to it, fuel, it starts to weigh down a fair bit. But you can just pop this thing down and swing it around a car park, you know, like it's absolutely nothing. Look, I can even dance with this thing. It's amazing. Yeah, a little tango. Anyway, those are the things I love. Let me show you the line it produces as well, because that's probably one of the most important things why you would love a machine like this is the line quality. Let me just get some cardboard out. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So like I say, adding the electric start, really nice touch. So turn her on, bit of choke on this one. All right, so, oh, do you see that? We're gonna come on to that in a second. That's one of the things I dislike, but we'll come back. So this is the quality we get from the spray machine. Now I think actually, all right, it's on a bit of wobbly cardboard here that's blowing around a little bit, but I think the quality you get from the lines is absolutely fantastic. All right, so those are the things I really like about the Titan 6955. I love that engine. I love the location of the hydraulics. I love the electric start on it. I love that pump on the back, that center of gravity, and the quality and the finish of the lines that you get from this machine. Mwah, chef's kiss. It is superb. But there are things I really dislike about it as well. So let's talk about them, because those things are going to be the decision, or at least they're going to be the impactful thing that sort of helps you decide whether or not you're going to buy a machine like a Titan, or whether you're going to go to Graco, or whether you're going to go for another brand, like pick a brand. So let's get started on these. I kind of look a little bit like a Smurf with the blue paint, but let's dive in. I'm going to show you the things I really dislike about the Titan 6955. Let's jump in. Now, while there are 4 things I do love about this machine, there are in fact 11 things I really don't like about it. And that's the reason I don't think this machine is ready for mass market. I think it needs some drastic improvement in small areas, but it will make a huge difference and actually make this machine comparable to something like a Graco. Let's dive in and I'll show you about the 11 things I really dislike with the Titans. Now, the first thing I dislike about the Titan line marking machine, it is the spray gun. This thing feels very much like a contractor gun. You know, for indoor spraying, it just feels a bit cheap and nasty. Not quite ready for heavy industrial application like this. It isn't there. And everything about it feels cheap and wobbly and a bit loose and nasty. You also, the spray tips that come with it, I just don't like them. I've actually swapped out to the Graco ones, and I also use the extra HD ones on here as well, because they go on, they're the same thread size, but they're just so much more accessible and cheaper actually to get the spray tips as well than the Titan ones. So yeah, the gun for me, first thing I really dislike about it, I feel it's just a little bit cheap and nasty and a bit wobbly. Item number 2 that I really dislike about it, it is the filter. Now the filter sits inside here, and arguably, you know, you can just pull it off like so. We'll give it a little twist. And I consider this separate to my dislike of the gun itself, although it does form part of the gun. This is the filter inside, and it clogs up so easily. Now, you don't get these on the Graco ones. Instead, you've got the main filter at the back of the machine, and that does an ample job. I just wonder why we need this. You can see this one clogs up an awful lot, has to constantly be cleaned out, and it just, again, it just feels like it's designed for the contractor range of guns and machinery, not for road markings. So item number 3 that I dislike about the Titan, it is this, the wobbly arm thing. Now, I get what Titan are going for. They've added this adjustable system on here that allows you to just loosen a nut on the side, and then you can adjust the height accordingly, which I think is a really novel idea if it worked. And that's the issue. Even when you do it up, you can tighten this thing right up like so. Get it as tight as you can. And it still wobbles inside here, as you can see that nut there. And it just doesn't do a nice job. Now, I do get what Titan were going for with this idea. It is a really novel design, but it's still a little too wobbly, and it just doesn't quite work the way you'd want it to work. It feels a little flimsy. Quite honestly, I think you could do without it, because the easiest way to manage this, just use the clamps on here and you can raise and lower your gun within a second or 2. I think this adds unnecessary cost to the machine, and I'd do without it if it were me. To be honest, I'd much rather do without it. Now, this brings me nicely onto number 4 on the things I dislike about the Titan, and that is the stem that we have here and the clamps that attach to it. Now, as you can see, if you're looking close enough, you'll see this is actually from a Graco unit, these butterfly clamps, and this bar has been turned around backwards so that we don't have to use the flat edge. Let me show you what it should look like on a brand new Titan. Now, this is the standard clamp and bar that you're going to get from Titan, and while in principle they look great, it's a really nice machine part. In practice, what you've got is you've got this nice sort of cut in, there's a little indent in here. The idea is that you can loosen this clamp off here, and you can slide this unit up. Sorry, mine's the whole thing's tilting on mine because it's got a clamp down the bottom here. You can tighten these things. In fact, let me show you. It's got a butterfly clamp. You tighten them as tight as you can go. But if you did this one-handed, that happens. It still moves. And this, as you can see, it's just a little bolt in the back, goes through, and I am genuinely tightening that as much as I can go, and it takes nothing. They're just cheap, nasty clamps on there. But as I was saying, actually, it was about this clamp here. I wasn't moaning about that one just yet. That's next. But it's this one here. The idea is that you can loosen this off, and then you can just slide it up. Mine's moving, of course. But the idea is you can loosen this off and slide it up, and then tighten it back into place, and it will sit inside that groove. So you can move it around, and it will keep it perfectly straight then. That's the idea behind it. Really, really good idea. It'll hold that gun perfectly straight. But in practice, and if you guys can see, it moves way too much and wobbles. I need to just retighten the side in all fairness here, but this thing comes loose in no time and it starts to wobble. And what happens is you start to wear out this little piece in here, and it doesn't take much. It's not much of an indent that they've cut in. And this flat edge on here starts to produce, and it just doesn't work. And so what we've done is we've actually taken these clamps off, and we go straight for the Graco clamps, as you can see on this one over here, and they just work so much better. This is just a tube clamp, and you can pick these up for about 15 quid, and you just slap them on. It doesn't matter what shape it is, these things hold so much better. When these other ones on the Titan, the original ones, start to wear out, they're absolutely atrocious. They just don't work at all. Now, the thing I was also just showing you that's leading me on to number 5 was this little butterfly bolt that you have on here. Now, you can tighten these things as much as you can, but honestly, they don't take much to move. This one's, we've tightened up the back bolts as well as much as possible on there, to the point it's actually starting to dent the sort of aluminium on it. But that's the only way to hold it in. And even then, you still get an awful lot of wobble on it. Now, the next thing I have to say about this isn't really a fault as such or an issue, because it's an aftermarket part, or really a lack thereof, and that's the point. It's laser guidance. Now, these lasers that I use are actually from Graco machinery, and they're absolutely superb, because the only one you can currently buy from Titan is a battery operated one. That's not what I want. I want something that I can control with a nice little switch on and off, turn it on and off when I need it, not have to keep changing batteries or charging it and re-putting it back into position. I want it in position the whole time. Now, there is a distinct lack of places you can fit these onto these machines, and so what I've done is I've got the bar that I dislike off of these, and I've welded it to the front, as you can see here, and I'm using that stem as my new holder or cradle for the laser guidance systems that we use. It's not really a fault as such, but it's something that I think is really, really lacking. Titan need to make lasers that actually wire into the batteries with a switch so that you can control it, and ideally, you want somewhere out the way like this that you can position the lasers as well. It's no good putting the lasers down here, because what I like to do is have one laser pointing at the start of the line and one of them looking straight ahead. I also don't want it impeding my field of view, so I don't want it in the way so I can't see the paint going down in the line. I want it out of the way. There's no reason it can't be. Ideally, I'd want it somewhere up the back, but having it at the front here works a treat for actually getting that first laser down on the ground as well. So this is the perfect position in this case. Now, I think it's something that Titan could consider, but I'm not really going to consider it a fault just yet. Instead, we're going to move further back down the machine, and we're going to be talking about the brakes. Now, this isn't an old machine. This one's about a year old now, and as you can see, that brake on the back does absolutely nothing for us. In fact, this one is so delicate. Now, as you put your foot on, it'll press the rubber against the tire for you. You give it a good press down like so, and it will clamp onto that wheel nice and firm. However, doesn't actually stop it from doing anything. And if you've got this thing in the back of your van, it is absolutely not going to stop it rolling around. The best it might do is if you're on a slight incline, it may stop the machine from rolling, but in the back of the van, this thing's still going to move around like crazy. It is also super delicate. As you can see on here, my one is actually bent already. It's really, really cheap in design and manufacturing. I don't like it at all. And the thing I would compare this to is if you see a Graco one, you know they are absolutely solid. You can kick those things really hard and they just bounce across the wheel, hold it in place, that thing is going nowhere, and then kick it off after you're done. No issues with that as far as I'm concerned. They work a treat. Titan on these ones, they seem to have missed something on it because it just doesn't work. In fact, let me show you on a brand spanking new one here. So this is on the brand new one, fresh out the crate. And as you can see, the brake's in brand new condition as well, obviously. As you roll it along, you sort of press it down onto there, and then you give it one little push. You'll hear it click like that, and that's it pressed onto the wheel as firmly as it will go. Now, there is a slight bit of adjustment, but as you can see, we've actually adjusted ours all the way out. So this is as much pressure as we could possibly apply on that wheel, and this thing will still move if you push it. Now, that's my concern is, you know, if you're on a hill or a slight incline, then sure, it'll stop it rolling away for a little bit, but they wear out very quickly and they're just no good, to be honest. I really like the Graco ones. You can kick them across that back wheel. Those things don't move. In fact, the one on my 5900 has been there for years and that thing gets abused. honestly, never gone wrong once. Whereas these ones, as you can see, they literally bend with ease. Now, the next thing on my list of really don't like that is this little filter support right here. Now, this thing has two purposes. We've got the return valve on here, which leaks, by the way. As you can see with all the paint around it, it constantly leaks. You can change the packings on that as many times as you want. That thing will leak again within a month. Bad design in my opinion. But the main issue I see on here is this bit of monkey metal right here. Now, the opposite side, we've got a really nice bit of steel that holds our filter in place, but this thing just wobbles and it breaks, and we've had to re-weld ours already. In fact, after about 10 hours, we had to re-weld it back into position, and even now, it's still crap. I just don't like it, and I don't understand why Titan could spend 20 quid on this little bit of steel, but couldn't spend 20 quid on this bit. I think if you got rid of the height adjustment arm, you could use that money to put this bit of steel in, or put the price up 20 quid. You're not gonna lose a sale over it, even if it's 100 quid. You are not gonna lose a sale on one of these machines because you've had to spend £100 on a bit of steel to make it better. If anything, you're gonna lose sales for all the other bits and pieces on it. Next up on our not so good list, it is the handlebars themselves. Now, these things, as you can see, they are bent. Mine have bent super quickly and easily. As soon as you apply pressure down on them, they just feel really weak. Now, the ones, I'm gonna compare it to my Graco machines, they are absolutely solid. Those things do not bend, buckle, and break. Whereas these Titan ones, all three of my machines had, they already need brand new handles because these things are so incredibly weak. If you put too much pressure on it, if you were to drop anything, this machine will break, I guarantee it. It is nowhere near as tough as a Graco machine, so you must treat this thing with absolute care, almost polish it, and you can see that I don't. I mean, we live in the real world. These things get used and abused on site. They're not really built for it. They are very delicate. The handlebars in these cases have actually cracked underneath, and it's such a cheap bit of metal they've used. Again, I don't understand why Titan couldn't use a bit of steel, add a little bit of weight, charge me another 100 quid. I wouldn't have complained. Instead, I'm complaining about it because these are such cheap quality, and it's gonna cost Titan a lot more money in repairs because I've already sent mine back for repair once or twice. I've now got 3 sets of handlebars I'm claiming for, and they offer a 4-year warranty with these machines, which would be fine if they could last 4 years. I don't think these machines are gonna last that long, and that means it's gonna cost Titan an awful lot in warranty claims. I've already cost a lot of money in warranty claims because the pump went on my first machine. Now the handlebars are all gone. I can't imagine what it's actually costing them. Quite a bit, I imagine. Now, in addition to just the handlebars themselves being really weak and bending, the other issue I found, right at the front under here, when you take this cover off, this piece here joins onto a little bit in the inside, which is actually welded to the frame. So the steel frame comes up here, it's got a little bit on the inside, and then you've got this bit that bolts to it. Now, it's got 4 little bolts inside that hold this clamp in place. On every single machine I've had, I've used Loctite, I've used washers, I've tried to hold these things steady, and they come loose within a matter of weeks. And so every single machine I have, I've had to take the covers off and I actually had to pay to have them welded in place to stop them from moving. Absolutely crazy for a brand new machine, but that is the only way you're gonna get these things to stop moving, is to weld them. Once you've got that done, the only other issue you've got is obviously the handlebars themselves, which we've just covered, which is just poor all round. Next up for me, it's the control center. And my concern with this is that nothing's backlit. And we do a lot of work in winter and nights and evenings. And that means that, we're relying on using our phones to see where the PSI is set, make sure that it's not moving and it's stable. And that's it really. I mean, I get that you don't need to adjust much. I mean, we run at full throttle the whole time. We'll set our PSI and away we go. But I would like to have it backlit. I get for the same money on a Graco a backlit display, and I don't understand why on a Titan I can't have that same display. In fact, the display on a Graco is so much better because not only do I get it backlit so I can see my pressure, I can see my RPMs, but I can also measure things like my mill thickness as well as the distance I'm covering. And that's not on the auto layout system, that's on the basic screen. It tells me my mill thickness, it tells me my line width, it tells me how many meters I've covered if I'm doing parking stalls, and I can measure it wheel to wheel. So I really love the backlit display you get on the Gracos, and I just don't see why we can't have it on the Titans. Now, The next one I've got is item number 11, and it relates to this again, but really it's the on-off switch. Now, if you guys know what a Graco one's like, you've got the hydraulic controls here to turn your pump on and off, or if it's not hydraulic and just a piston pump, sorry, you've still got the control to turn your pump on and off, but you've also got the ability to isolate it. So if you've got a problem, you're going along with your line marking machine, you think, okay, got to cut it out, bam, you press the button, the whole thing's isolated, the engine's isolated. It doesn't drop the pressure. You still have to use the valve to drop the pressure like that, but you can isolate that engine. With a Titan one, if I've got an issue and I'm standing right here pushing along, I've got to come all the way around to the side here, drop down, and then turn it off at the side. And I just think the real issue with that is obviously there's a big pipe in the way here, right in front of that key switch, which is a real pain, to be honest, to get to. But also, I just think that it could easily have a little switch at the top that just allows you to isolate that engine nice and safely from the controls. You don't have to stop and walk in front of a machine that's potentially moving as well. You can just isolate from there. So I don't know why Titan didn't add that in. It just seems like a simple control that would cost you, again, $4 or $5 to add in. In fact, I'm going to add my own in, and I think it'll cost me about $5 to add it on. So there you have it. Those are the things I love and really don't love about the Titan line marking machine. Hopefully you guys can take something on board from it, take some feedback, great. And I will see you guys in the next video.